I knew the second I stepped into the dining room. Something was off. Too bright. Too perfect. The crystal flutes glowed under the chandelier. The good china sparkled on linen I hadn't seen since last Christmas. Napkins folded like origami. Forks aligned like soldiers. This wasn't a casual Saturday meal. This was ceremony. And there was Megan. Sitting at the head of the table. My father's chair. She looked like she belonged there, hair glossy, sweater soft, her smile set just right. My mother hovered nearby, smoothing the tablecloth though there was nothing to fix. My father leaned back in his real chair, grinning like he'd already won something. Aunt Clara and her husband perched stiffly, ready to nod in agreement at whatever was coming. Dorothy sat further down, quiet and watchful. When my eyes met hers, she gave me a fleeting look of weary solidarity, a silent acknowledgement that she, too, saw the stage being set. At the far end, Martin swirled champagne in his glass, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. I paused in the doorway. My chest tightened. This wasn't family dinner. This was an ambush. "Sweetheart, you're late," my mother said. Sharon Hayes always makes lateness sound like disobedience. "Traffic," I answered. One word. No emotion. I slipped off my coat in the hall. That's when I saw them. 3 tubs stacked against the wall, lids taped, labels written in Megan's round, almost girlish handwriting. Megan, winter clothes. Megan, books. Megan, misc. My stomach sank. It was already happening. Boxes in my garage had been the first. Warning. Now the evidence was stacked by my parents' front door like a declaration. I walked back and sat down. My father popped the cork. The sound hit the ceiling, too loud, too celebratory. Foam spilled as he filled the flutes. His grin stretched wide. "A toast," he said. "To family." They lifted their glasses on cue. Sharon's smile beamed like a spotlight. Aunt Clara clucked approval. Megan accepted her glass with both hands, basking like she was queen for the night. Dorothy raised her water glass, her expression carefully neutral, but her gaze lingered on me for a moment too. Martin's glass lifted a fraction slower than the rest. I kept my hand on mine, cool condensation wetting my palm. Megan leaned forward, eyes locked on me. "So," she began, her voice light, casual, rehearsed. "I have news." She let the pause hang just long enough for everyone to lean in. "Next week I'm moving in with Avery." The words dropped like a stone. Not a question, not a request, a declaration. My chest tightened, but I didn't flinch. Megan smiled wider, as if she'd gifted me something. "Just until I get things sorted. It'll be fun. Sisters under one roof. Wine nights, Netflix. Company for both of us." The table reacted in chorus. Sharon's voice rose first, syrupy sweet. "Perfect timing. Avery spends too much time alone in that big house." Richard chimed in, lifting his glass higher. "Exactly. Family is for helping each other. It's the best solution for everyone." Aunt Clara nodded furiously. "Sensible. That house is far too big for one person." Her husband nodded too, like a bobblehead who never disagrees. Megan basked in their approval. "I've already started packing," she added brightly. "Most of my stuff's already in the garage anyway. Won't take more than a day. The garage boxes." My pulse kicked. 3 days ago, I'd found them, stacked high, oversized tubs pressed against the wall. Megan's winter clothes, Megan's books. When I texted her, she brushed it off. "Just storage," she said. "Temporary. Temporary has been her excuse for 10 years. Temporary job loss. Temporary rent help. Temporary stays that lasted months. Temporary until it became permanent." Now the trap was sprung. My consent was treated as a formality already granted. I stared at the scene. Megan sipping champagne, my father grinning, my mother glowing with satisfaction. The perfect stage, the perfect betrayal. To new beginnings, Richard said, raising his glass. Everyone lifted theirs. Everyone except me. I set my water down carefully. My hands trembled, but not from fear. Fury steadied me. This won't work, I said. My voice was calm. Flat. The table paused. Eyes shifted toward me. Sharon's smile faltered. What do you mean, dear? I said, reaching into my bag. The house isn't available. Confusion flickered across Megan's face. What are you talking about? I pulled out the manila envelope. Plain, ordinary, final. I placed it squarely on the table, between the china and the champagne. The sound of paper hitting linen cut sharper than any shout. What's that? Richard asked, his tone dipping, low. An opportunity, I said, sliding the envelope toward Megan. Since you've decided to move in, I've prepared the paperwork. Confusion flickered across Megan's face. She opened it. Inside wasn't a welcome card. It was a formal lease agreement. My voice remained calm and flat. Rent is due on the 1st of each month at market rate. Security deposit is required, up front. Utilities will be split evenly. Any damages will be deducted from the deposit. It's all standard. The table was silent. Sharon stared at the papers as if they were venomous snakes. Avery, she said, her voice dangerously sweet. This is family, not a business transaction. Exactly, I said, meeting her gaze. In a business transaction, I'd expect to be paid. With family, you just expected me to give it all away. I looked back at Megan, whose face was turning pale. So, will you be signing? Megan looked at our parents, desperate. Richard scoffed. This is ridiculous. She won't be signing anything. I leaned back, a sense of calm washing over me. I know. I let the silence hang for a beat. Of course, the contract is hypothetical now. I knew you'd never agree, to be responsible. That's why I sold the house last week. Silence. Thick. Absolute. Megan's fork slipped from her hand, clattering against porcelain. You what? I sold it, I repeated, my voice steady. Closing in 30 days. For a heartbeat, no one moved, no one breathed. The chandelier hummed, the only sound in the room. Sharon's face hardened. Richard leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Megan's smile shattered. Aunt Clara gasped. Dorothy didn't move. She didn't need to. The ambush had collapsed, and the war had just begun. The silence after I dropped the words was the sharpest I had ever known. It cut the air, sliced through the china and the chandelier light. Megan's fork trembled in her hand. Richard's glass hovered midair. Sharon's face went slack, then stiffened like wet plaster turning to stone. Aunt Clara gasped loud enough to echo. Dorothy sat still, her hands folded over her napkin, her eyes steady on me. Then Sharon spoke. The smile was gone. Her tone was sharp, clipped, surgical. Selfish. That's what this is. Selling your own house, without a word, when your sister needed you most. Selfish. The word landed like a brand. They've been calling me selfish since I was 12. Whenever I said no, whenever I refused to play the role they scripted, that was the label. I let it sit on the table between us like a stain. Megan's voice cracked, soft at first, then rising. You knew I needed a place. You knew, and you sold it to spite me. Tears gathered fast in her eyes, glistening beneath. The chandelier like diamonds she couldn't afford. You've had 10 years of bad timing, I said flatly. Rent, bills, apartments. Every time you come up short, you expect someone else to pay. Usually me. Her lip trembled. She shook her head. That's not fair. I've had bad luck. You've had family funding your bad luck, I said. Luck's never that generous. Richard slammed his palm flat on the table. The crystal flutes rattled. Watch your mouth, he warned. His voice had that low timbre he used when I was a child, when control was the goal, not conversation. Met his stare. I am. For once I'm saying exactly what I mean. Aunt Clara leaned forward, bracelets jangling. Avery, really, this is cruel. Families lift each other up. Must you humiliate your sister in front of everyone? I almost laughed. Humiliation? Megan had staged the ambush. Megan had packed her tubs into my garage without asking. Megan had announced her move-in like a queen declaring conquest. And I was the cruel one? I reached into my bag again. Not for theatrics. For truth. 3-folded. Invoices. I smoothed them out on the table one by one. Paper against linen. Paper against denial. Roof replacement, I said, tapping the first. March storms revealed 3 leaks. $11,200. Paid. I slid the second across. April. City replaced the main water line. My side cracked. 8,200. Paid. The third. June. Heating system failure. 5,000. Paid. I stacked them neatly. My voice didn't rise. That's 24,000 in 6 months. All of it out of my pocket. Not yours. Not Megan's. Mine. The room stilled again. Numbers carry their own weight. They make their own silence. Sharon waved a hand, dismissive. Always with the ledgers, Avery. Always the receipts. Family is not a spreadsheet. Exactly, I said. Because in a spreadsheet, the math has to add up. Here, it never does. Richard leaned forward, eyes narrowed. We helped you once. Don't forget who co-signed your first loan. Without us, you wouldn't even have that house. There it was. The old card. Their single act of aid, stretched across decades like a leash. I tapped the invoices again. Co-signing didn't cover this. I did. Every repair, every sleepless night, every choice I made to keep that roof standing, I paid. Alone. Don't rewrite history because you want me cornered. Megan's tears spilled freely now, gliding down her cheeks in perfect symmetry. You hate me, she whispered. That's the truth. You've always hated me. I shook my head slowly. No, I don't hate you. I hate being erased for you. Every time you stumble, they push me aside to catch you. Every time I save, they spend it for you. And every time I draw a line, they call me selfish. Clara's lips pressed tight. You sound bitter, Avery. Ungrateful. Ungrateful. I almost laughed again. 9 years I saved to buy that house. 9 years I ate ramen, worked overtime, patched clothes. I signed a loan. I paid a loan. But now, suddenly, it was a family investment? Suddenly, it's a family resource? Richard's eyes darkened. Watch yourself. No, I said. Watch me, because I'm finished bending. Megan slammed her fist against the table, rattling the silverware. You're ruining everything. I finally had a plan, and you destroyed it. Your plan, I said coldly, was my silence. She sobbed harder. Sharon leaned toward her, stroking her arm, glaring at me like I'd just kicked a child. Don't listen to her, sweetheart. She doesn't understand what family means. We'll work this out. You'll have your room. That did it. I laughed. Once. Short. Sharp. You already designed it, didn't you? Pinterest boards. Megan's new room. You planned my erasure behind my back. Sharon's lips parted, in shock. She hadn't expected me to know. She should have. She forgets competence when it's inconvenient. The room was heavy with anger now. Richard's glare, Sharon's scorn, Megan's tears, Clara's indignation, all of it aimed at me. Then, Dorothy spoke, calm, clear. I've watched Avery carry more than her share. She never asked you for a dime. She handled it all, alone, and calling that selfish? It's not right. The words cut cleaner than mine ever could. Because they weren't mine. They were hers. Sharon whipped her head toward her friend. Dorothy, this is family business. Dorothy didn't flinch. So is Avery. You keep forgetting that. Silence followed. A heavy, shifting silence. I exhaled, slow. For the first time all night, I felt seen. Not saved, not rescued. Just seen. The silence after Dorothy's words was heavy, but it didn't last. Richard cleared his throat, deep and deliberate. That sound had always meant danger in my childhood. When my father used his throat instead of his fists, he was telling you there was still a chance to obey. Avery, he said slowly, his voice low, almost even. Family helps family. Period. If you turn your back on that, you're not just failing Megan, you're failing us. There it was. The ultimatum. The family creed sharpened into a blade. I met his stare. My voice didn't shake. Then consider me guilty. Megan gasped like I'd stabbed her. You can't mean that. I do, I said. Her tears fell harder. All I wanted was a chance. All I wanted was your help, but you'd rather watch me suffer. You'd rather sell everything than share it with me. I leaned back in my chair. No, I'd rather stop drowning in a house I can't afford while everyone else treats it like community property. You're cruel, she whispered, her mascara smudging. You're a monster. I almost laughed. Monster. That was new. I'd been called selfish, cold, bitter, ungrateful. Monster was a promotion. Sharon slammed her hand on the table. Enough. This isn't about money. This is about love, about family. Megan has been through so much. We promised her stability. We promised her a place. You promised with my roof, I said. You promised with my work, with my life. That doesn't make you generous. It makes you thieves. The word hung in the air. Thieves. Clara gasped so hard I thought she'd choke. How dare you, she hissed. Calling your own parents that. Disgusting. I turned to her. They can call me selfish every day of my life, but I can't call them out for taking what isn't theirs. That's balance. She opened her mouth, then shut it, bracelets jingling with the motion. Richard leaned in again. His face was calm, too calm. That was when he was most dangerous. Taxes are due soon, he said quietly. Do you really think you'll handle them on your own after selling your house out from under yourself? It was a threat, dressed as concern. The same. Old move. Suggest weakness. Imply collapse. Keep control. I met his eyes and smiled. The smallest smile I could manage. I've already handled more than you ever did. Don't mistake silence for weakness. The table froze. The words were out. They couldn't be pulled back. Then Martin spoke. His voice cut the air like a knife through silk. Calm. Measured. He'd been silent all night, sipping champagne, watching. Now he set his glass down, deliberately, the sound sharp in the quiet. Richard, he said, I've known you a long time. You know I respect you, but Avery's right. She's not being unreasonable. Richard whipped his head toward him. Martin, no, listen, Martin continued. I've watched Megan lean on all of you for years, and I've watched Avery stand on her own. You say family helps family, but real help doesn't mean carrying someone forever. It means giving them the chance to carry themselves. Megan blinked, stunned. You're taking her side? Martin turned to her. His tone didn't soften. I'm telling the truth. And here's more truth. The grocery store down the street from me is hiring. Evening shift. It's not glamorous. It won't make you rich. But it pays enough for rent and food. It would get you started. The words landed like a slap. Megan's mouth opened, then closed. Her face flushed red. A grocery store? She spat. You expect me to bag groceries? Stock shelves? That's beneath me. Beneath you? I repeated, my voice sharp now. Beneath you is exactly where you are, because you won't stand on your own. Her eyes widened, stung. You think you're better than me. I think I'm responsible for myself, I said. That's what you call better. The table was a battlefield now. Sharon looked horrified, as if Martin had betrayed her personally. Richard's jaw clenched so tight the muscle jumped. Clara muttered prayers under her breath like this was blasphemy. Megan pushed her chair back violently, the legs scraping the floor like a scream. I won't do it, she shouted. I won't lower myself to that. The tears came fast again. I deserve more. I deserve comfort. I deserve family. I leaned forward, voice low, final. Then you'll stay beneath yourself, because I'm done. The words cracked through the room. Not loud, not angry, just final. Silence. Even the chandelier seemed to stop humming. Richard's fists tightened on the tablecloth. Sharon's lips pressed thin. Megan stood there trembling, shaking with fury and humiliation. Clara's eyes darted between them all, desperate for someone to restore order. Dorothy sat still, her eyes on me, the faintest nod of quiet approval. The trial was over. The verdict delivered. And for the first time, I wasn't the defendant. The silence after my last words lasted longer than I thought possible. Megan stood frozen, her face blotched, her tears streaking down like she'd been caught in a storm no one else felt. Sharon reached for her hand. Richard's glare stayed locked on me, his jaw tight, ready to crush stone. Megan shoved her chair back, the scrape screaming across the floor. Fine, she shouted. If you won't help me, I'll help myself. She snatched her purse, stormed out, her footsteps stomping down the hall. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the chandelier. Sharon hissed my name. Avery, look what you've done. I finally told the truth, I said. You've humiliated your sister, she spat. No, I said calmly. She humiliated herself by expecting my life to be hers. Richard pushed his chair back, rising to his full height. He towered over me, shoulders squared, voice low with menace. This isn't over. You think you've won something? You've only made enemies, in your own blood. I stood too. I had learned a long time ago that the only way to survive his threats was to meet them eye level. Then so be it, I said. Better enemies than parasites. His eyes flared. For a second I thought he might strike. Then Martin stood, slow, deliberate. Enough, Richard, he said. His voice was firm, steady, the kind men listen to even when they don't want to. She's not wrong. Megan needs to stand on her own. If that makes her angry, so be it. Dorothy gathered her shawl and gave me the smallest nod. You're not wrong, Avery. Don't let them twist you. That night, when I drove home, the silence in the car wasn't heavy. It was clean. Weeks passed. The family phone calls came, of course. Sharon with her soft-voiced guilt. Richard with his threats wrapped as advice. Clara with her hissing condemnation. Megan with her tearful messages. I can't believe you'd do this to me. I can't believe you'd sell out your own blood. I ignored most of them. For the first time in years, I ignored them. The boxes in my garage sat untouched for days. Then one morning, I came home to find them gone. No note. No thanks. Just gone. I later learned Megan had taken Martin's suggestion. She didn't announce it. She didn't brag. She slipped into the evening, shift at the grocery store like a shadow. For the first time, she wasn't being paraded as the family darling. She was wearing the red apron, stocking shelves, ringing up groceries, counting crumpled bills at the end of her shift. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't beneath her. It was exactly where she belonged. Meanwhile, I packed. Room by room, I folded 9 years of my life into boxes. The realtor had found a townhouse, smaller, cheaper, manageable. It wasn't my dream home, but it was mine, chosen on my terms. At night, I sat at my kitchen table, paperwork spread out, highlighters in hand. Not Pinterest boards, not fantasy budgets. Real courses, real applications, a certification program in financial planning. Something I could build on. Something stable. The lamplight glowed across the pages. My fingers ached from writing. My eyes burned from screens. But the fatigue wasn't despair. It was investment. Dorothy called once a week, sometimes more. "You did right," she said every time. Don't doubt it. I didn't. Not anymore. One evening, months later, I stopped by the grocery store. I didn't mean to. I needed milk, that's all. But there she was. Megan. Hair tied back, apron wrinkled, hands moving quick over the register. She didn't see me at first. She was focused, scanning, bagging, counting change. There was no champagne glass in her hand, no audience nodding approval. Just work. Honest, simple work. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened. For a second, I thought she'd crumble again, collapse into tears, accuse me of cruelty. Instead, she held my gaze. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just nodded once, almost imperceptible. It was the smallest thing, but it meant everything. I moved into the townhouse in early winter. The walls were plain, the rooms were small, but the bills were mine to pay, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I could breathe. At my new desk, surrounded by books and binders, I studied late into the night. Charts, formulas, tax codes. I thought of Richard's smirk when he said taxes are due. I thought of Sharon's sneer when she said family isn't a spreadsheet. And I smiled, because now, more than ever, I knew family should never be run like theirs. Every invoice I filed, every problem I solved, every mock test I passed was a step away from their control and a step into my own life. One night, Dorothy came by with soup and a bottle of cheap wine. She set it on my counter, looked around the bare townhouse and said, "It feels lighter here." "It does," I admitted. "You're building again," she said. "Yes," I said. "This time with boundaries." I thought of Sharon's sneer when she said, "Family isn't a spreadsheet." She raised her glass. "To boundaries." We clinked. 6 months after that dinner, I was no longer the woman who walked into an ambush. And Megan was no longer the girl who thought the world owed her rooms she hadn't earned. We had both been forced into change. Different kinds, but real. 6 months passed. Winter broke into spring. The townhouse was no longer bare. Books lined the shelves, plants filled the windows, and my desk was buried in study guides and fresh certificates. I had done it. Passed. The program earned the license. A new beginning, on my terms. The invitation came quietly. A text from Sharon. Dinner Sunday. Just family. No extra names. No audience. No ambush. I almost didn't go. But something in me wanted to see. Wanted to know. I walked into my parents' dining room and exhaled. No crystal flutes, no china, no chandelier glaring down like a spotlight. Just a plain table, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the food of ordinary nights. My father sat at his chair. My mother fussed with the gravy boat. And Megan sat halfway down, hair pulled back, hands resting calmly on her lap. She looked up when I entered. Her eyes met mine. There were no tears this time, no practiced pout. Just a nod. Small. Real. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi," I answered. We sat. We ate. Conversation stumbled at first, then found footing. Richard asked about my program. Sharon asked about my new place. Not with envy, not with accusation, just questions, honest ones. And Megan, she spoke of her job, evening shifts, long hours. She admitted it was harder than she thought. But she was saving. She was planning. "If I keep it up," she said, "I'll have first and last month's rent by fall." Her voice wavered with something I hadn't heard before. Pride. Earned pride. No one interrupted her. No one dismissed her. Not even Sharon. For the first time, the table felt level. Later, as we cleared plates, Sharon stopped me in the kitchen. She couldn't quite meet my eyes, focusing instead on a spot on the counter. Her voice was quiet. I thought we were helping her," she said. "But we were just making it easier for her not to try. That wasn't fair. To either of you." It wasn't a direct apology, but for her it was monumental. It was an admission. Richard was at the doorway. He cleared his throat, and when I looked at him, he gave a stiff, single nod. The threatening glare was gone, replaced by something grudging, something that was as close to respect as he would ever get. For him, that nod was the equivalent of a speech. When I left that night, the air outside was cool, gentle. No weight pressed on my shoulders. No knots twisted in my chest. I walked to my car free, family dinner. This time, it wasn't an ambush. It was balance. Finally.